All right, good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Online Teaching Essentials, our Wednesday 2:30 session. My name is Levi Sterling. I'm the Academic Technology Service Director for SMU Guildhall. So I work both with folks in Guildhall and in OIT. We've also got Faye Walter here. She's going to be co-hosting. Big thing she'll be driving is the chat. I will occasionally check on the chat, but she'll be the one primarily managing that and helping me make sure I don't give you any bad information. So we're going to start off with everybody's microphones on mute. More than anything, just to help prevent audio feedback issues. It's a good suggestion for if you're ever starting a Zoom session, which we're going to be covering today, how to run Zoom. Just start with everybody on mute and then unmute folks whenever you're ready to have a conversation, particularly because you get those weird whistling, humming feedback sounds that are not pleasant for anyone involved. We will take questions at the very end of everything, but also throughout as we transition from one topic to another, we will try to pause for questions so that nothing gets left behind. All right. Basics of what we're going to go over today. It's going to be just a quick outline of some basic practices, things to keep in mind in running an online course. And then on top of that, looking at a number of technology tools to help you run your course online. My.SMU and paired with SMU email. There'll be a quick overview of that, and then we'll do a deeper dive into Zoom and Canvas. These are going to be kind of some basics of Zoom and Canvas, kind of what you really need to get started. If you really want to get super deep into Zoom and Canvas, there are additional trainings on both of them being offered both today and tomorrow. But these are going to be really the basics to just get you started with what you absolutely need to get your course up and running. As we kind of take a top level look at this, not so much on a technology side, but more on a SMU policy and best practices side, there's an email that's going to be coming out from the Office of the Provost to all faculty that's going to outline this first section for you, but just to kind of give you a preview of some of the stuff of where the university is at. When it comes to preparing for our courses online, one of the big things to keep in mind, don't try to do everything. Don't try to take everything that you've ever done in a class and try to replicate it 100% online. Some things work in an in-person setting that do not work online. Some things work online that don't work in person. So just understand that it is okay if you don't mirror your class as you did in person online. That being said, because we're going to probably be making some significant changes to our courses, faculty has been asked by the Office of the Provost to create revised syllabi. Every course should have a new syllabus written, and those should be communicated to the students. Students need to know what changes are being made so that they can be prepared for those changes as well. Big thing to keep in mind, and we'll really go over this whenever we get into the Canvas stuff, is student access. How are we going to guarantee students have access to the necessary resources? Canvas offers some great tools for that, but we're going to discuss some best practices on how to ensure that that access is constant. Full disclosure, I have no inside knowledge that you have not been let in on. There is no sort of secret that we are all holding back as to how long we will be online or what the end game situation looks like here. It's all just a very fluid situation. The best we can say at this point is plan as if the rest of the semester will be online. If it is, great, you've planned accordingly. If it's not, it's better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. So just plan your course as if the rest of it is going to be online for the rest of the semester. When it comes to scheduling and attendance, faculty will need to reset course expectations for students. This should be through the revised syllabus, just letting them know what your expectations are. Office of the Provost has requested at this time that faculty hold synchronous online sessions during normal class time, which means the request is that you find a way, whether it's Zoom or some of the tools that are built into Canvas or others, that you find a way to digitally meet with your students during class time. There have been some concerns raised on this as far as different types of classes. How would that look? How does that look for a performing arts class? How does that look for a lecture hall class of 120 students? The good news is, from a technology standpoint, Zoom can handle 300 people in a meeting at one time. So there's really not going to be a limit on the number of students. The audio quality and the video quality of Zoom is very good. It can handle most things. Now, if you do have specific concerns beyond that, I would say talk to the Office of the Provost about your specific concerns if you're, very concerned about that. But know that that is the expectation. And it is understood that it will probably be inconvenient for some folks, especially for some students who are already starting to adapt to, the idea of not meeting regularly. But that is a request of the university to, as much as usual, as much as possible, business as usual when it comes to meeting times. Faculty should expect students to attend synchronous sessions and should keep a log of attendance and participation. When it comes to communication, communicate early, communicate often. You will not regret over communicating with your students. Let the students know when you expect to hear from them, when you expect to see them. Record everything, log everything, keep a record of the communication between you and your students, especially when it comes to accommodations. Work with the DAS office. Accommodations can sometimes be tricky to figure out in a standard classroom setting. We have to figure them out again many times for an online situation. DAS office is still open, and they are still certainly willing to work with you and figure out how to best accommodate any students that need accommodation. Grading policies, to the best of your ability. Faculty is required to adhere to the existing grading policies. When it comes to grade practice in your class, there is room definitely for some modification. What does that mean? It means university grading policies stand. But if you find yourself in a situation where you say, well, every Friday in my class, we have a quiz that is a minor grade, but I don't know if that quiz is necessary once we move to an online format. If you decide with your class, hey, we're getting rid of that quiz that we do every Friday that's like worth 5 points, and we're just getting rid of that. That's not a thing we're going to do anymore. So long as you communicate that to your students, update it in the syllabus, that's not a problem. You're more than welcome to change grading practices. Just know that grading policies need to stay the same. Okay, that's top level sort of university information stuff. Like I said, Provost will be sending all of that out. You'll get all of that officially delivered from them if you have not already. On the SMU information side, I wanted to point out, I'm sure you've all been through a number of the pages that OIT has put out that offers information. That's how you found out about this course. But one of the ones that I think is really worth pointing out in particular is on this page for remote instruction, this link for the one-page guide for remote instruction. This one-page guide for remote instruction is super, super useful. It has essentially everything you need to run a class online. I'm not a big paper person. I love things that are born and live digitally, but this is something that I highly recommend. If you got a printer, print it out, stick it on the wall next to your computer, or at least bookmark it. This is a really great place to go back to figure out, okay, what is it I should be using? Where do I need to go? What is the best tool for this? This is not every tool that SMU offers. It's certainly not every tool that exists in the world of academic technology. But these are what we really truly feel are the essentials. If you just get these, you could still run not only a working class, but actually a really good class just with these tools. On this same page, one of the best ways to do a fast contact to all of the students in your class is to pull up your class roster and shoot them an email. Email is the official way to communicate with students as far as staff goes. It's also a great way to communicate with students as far as faculty goes. Great thing about email, it's secure, you know who it's going through. It's a long living record. You can delete the email that you received, they can delete the email you sent. It can still be found later if for some reason you go, oh no, I needed that back. Email is a great permanent record, or at least close enough to permanent. How do you email your students easily? My.SMU has your class rosters. Now, this is where I would love to be able to go on to My.SMU and show you how to pull up a class roster, but I don't have a class, therefore I don't have a roster to show you. But there's a video that has been provided by OIT. It'll show you exactly how to view your class roster using My.SMU. I am not going to play that video for you right now because playing a video in a video stream is less than ideal. Audio quality is usually terrible at best. Video quality is okay, typically pretty frame rate problem. Is not great. You can do it. I don't recommend it. So you can watch this on your own time if you're interested in how to do that. And then the second part of that, which really goes hand in hand, and I'm definitely not going to waste your time on, is SMU email. SMU email exists. It is available. It is still very much functional. You can use webmail, you can use Outlook, you can use lots of different things. I'm a big Outlook person myself. Use email to talk to your students in an official capacity. You'll never regret it. If you need help, help desk is still open, especially for those who find themselves working on a computer that they're not normally on. If you've gone to, oh, how does I get my email running again? Contact the help desk, they can walk you through it. Okay, before we move on to anything else, what questions do we have? Basic oversight or the really basic stuff of My.SMU or SMU email? You feel free to ask questions in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute yourself and just talk, you're certainly welcome to do that as well. All right, we'll take that as a good sign. Okay, moving on to Zoom and Canvas. We're going to start off with Canvas. If you are a heavy Canvas user, great. That's awesome. You're in a great spot. If you are not a heavy Canvas user, you're new to Canvas, it's something you've not really used extensively before, you're also in a great spot because now is your opportunity to learn it. When you first get into Canvas, this is basically what you would see. I've done a few things in this course, but I've tried to keep it pretty basic so that you would see what it would look like for a new Canvas user. Log into your Canvas course, you're greeted with what is both at the same time kind of blank and plain, but also just way too much information. There's all these links and just so much to look at. The good news is there's tons of tools available to you. Bad news is it's sometimes hard to know what to use. Let's say, for example, I have an article that I want to share with my students that I want them to read before a discussion tomorrow. Okay, so it's a PDF article. All right, so I could use announcements to announce to the students they need to read it. I could use assignments to assign the reading to the students. I could post it in discussions since they're supposed to take part in a discussion. Maybe I click on people to send it to the people. It's a PDF, so is it a page? No, PDFs are files. Maybe I just make it a part of the syllabus. You can see pretty quickly right there, it's already hard to know, okay, where do I need to put stuff? Here's the good news. There's not a right or a wrong way to do it. The big key here is consistency. The thing that I like to say is show the students where the bookshelf is. And what I mean by that is if you were to have a traditional classroom, think walk-in rows of seats, chalkboard at the front, and a bookshelf. If the books belong on the bookshelf, you would tell the students, here's the bookshelf. You may take books from here. When you're done, put the books back. You show them the bookshelf. The same way in an online course, that one of the most important things you can do is show your students the digital bookshelf. Show them where they're going to find their resources, and then always put the resources there. If you're the type of instructor that likes to use announcements to share resources, great. Always use announcements to share resources. If you're the type of person who likes to create an assignment, and in the assignment description, put the resource, great. Always put them in assignments the same way. If they're going to be done as a discussion, and that's how you're going to run your class, is off of discussion boards, great. Be consistent. You will save your students a lot of heartbreak and yourself a lot as well, especially a lot of time when it comes to all the emails that you could be getting from your students saying, hey, where can I find? One of the biggest time sucks that online instructors find is students coming to them saying, where can I find? Simplify it for yourself by giving the students one place to find things. If they have one place to find things, they're not going to come and ask you where to find it. So pick where you're going to put it and be consistent. Put that in your syllabus. Let the students know this is where you will find class resources. That doesn't mean you can only use one type of tool that comes from Canvas, but just let them know where resources will always be found and be consistent. Okay. 3 big things in Canvas I want to hit on. Discussions, conferences, and Panopto. I'm going to start up a conference. Click on conferences, new conference, and give it a name. It's going to say type right here. The type is big blue button. It's a drop down. The service that we use for conferences is big blue button. There's not a different service available, so you don't have to change that. The duration will set it to end automatically. You start it and it will end 60 minutes later automatically. Now, if you want it to be able to go an indefinite length, you can select no time limit and then it won't have an ending time. I highly recommend leaving a duration. If you're planned for 60 minutes and you know your tendency is to go a little bit long, set it at 70 minutes. But it's nice to be able to have it wrap up automatically on its own. Enable recording for this conference. Yes, I want to be able to have this conference recorded. Any descriptions that I want to add in, and update. Now, I have created a conference. I have not started that conference. In order to start the conference, I actually have to click on the Start button. Now, while this is starting up, oh, it's already loaded up. I'm not going to select microphone because I don't want to mess with the microphone that you're hearing right now. I'm going to jump back here real quick to these active conferences. You'll see under new conferences, this is the conference that's in progress right now. I can end or join. This is a conference that has not started yet, so it shows start. And these are conferences that have already ended down underneath. So in my current conference, it's not that different than Zoom in a lot of ways. I've got the ability to share my webcam, which I'm not going to click because that would cause problems with Zoom. I could also share my screen. I'm not going to do another screen share because, again, I'm sharing already on Zoom, and having more than one share can tend to be problematic. But you can share your screen or your webcam just like if you were in Zoom. It gives you a nice little layout to let you know kind of what is available in here. There's chat. You can use your webcam, audio, emojis, breakout rooms, create polls, share your screen, and a multi-user whiteboard. These are all things that are built in right here. There's a public chat. In the public chat, whatever you say in here is said to the entire course. It is public. Under shared notes, really cool thing here, you can create a note while you are in the middle of the course, while you're in the middle of your session, or if you have notes pre-written, you can just go ahead and paste them in, share them this way. The thing that I really like about the notes feature is these notes are not a part of the video. What that means is if you have notes that are either typed during the presentation or put in before, during, whatever the presentation, a student would not have to go through and watch the video in order to get these notes. The notes are actually published as a separate text document so that they can review them independently. It's a really cool feature. So that's the shared notes. There's also direct messaging. However many users there are, you will see on the left-hand side right here, and you can direct message anyone. I'm the only person in this room right now, so I can't message anyone else. If I go to the next slide, you have the whiteboard, which is written up, which is usable by all users. You can also, this little blue plus button down here, you can start a poll, upload a presentation, or share an external video. While you have the option to upload a presentation, uploading a presentation works best when you upload a presentation that is in PDF format, which would mean taking what would typically be a PowerPoint presentation, export it as PDF, then upload the PDFs into here for your presentation. If that's the way you like to work, if that workflow makes sense to you, great. If you're like me, I prefer to just share my screen and share the PowerPoint where I have it. Again, whatever works best for you, they're both perfectly acceptable ways to do it. Okay, so this is the conference. I've been having trouble with this today for some reason. I should be able to end the meeting right here. We'll see if it actually ends. Yeah, for some reason it's not ending the meetings. I'm not sure why, but from here I know if I click end, it will actually end the meeting. Now you'll notice these previous courses that I've done, I can click on these and it will show me the notes or the presentation. The presentation link takes me to a video of the presentation. Notes takes me to a text version of the presentation. I can see the actual notes in text format from the presentation. Now, the one that I just recorded right here, I can't click on it because it's still processing. It does take a little bit of processing time. It's not immediate, but it always processes in less time than it took to record the video. So if you have an hour-long session, it will be processed in less than an hour. And that's like worst case scenario. Realistically, it's usually an hour-long session takes about 10 minutes to process. It's pretty quick. So once these conferences are in here, they are available to the students. They can go back, they can view past records. You can go through and you can delete. Now, I believe it stores 14 days of conferences. After that point, it doesn't store conferences in the cloud, so because it has to have a limit on how many it can store. There are ways to store conferences that you can export the video if necessary, but honestly, for an online course, as much as you might like to have things recorded, Conferences, after a certain point, it actually is probably better to clean them up so that you're, moving from one content onto the next. If you want to store it externally, great, but having them all right here can tend to get you into, which one am I looking for? How far back do I have to go? It's best to move on to new content and have the other stuff in a library somewhere else. So that's conferences. It's pretty straightforward. It's as easy as create a conference, start a conference. The tools are all built in. Now, this is just a personal preference thing. If I'm going to set up a conference, I like to include, day and time and as much information as possible, just so that later whenever I go in to decide which conference to start, I know which one to start. And when I go back trying to locate a previous conference, I know where to locate it from beforehand. Like I said, it's pretty easy, it's pretty straightforward, but it's also a way underutilized tool, especially by those who used conferences in Canvas a couple years ago when it first started and it wasn't great. A number of folks used it and said, man, I'm never using that again. It has gotten way better, and I would actually call it a very good tool at this point. Okay, before we move on from conferences, any questions about conferences in Canvas? All right. This one's going to be a little bit quicker. Discussions. Discussions are pretty straightforward. If you've ever used any sort of online discussion format, this is just like any other one. Honestly, if you can post to Facebook, you can start a discussion. You hit the discussion, the plus discussion to add a discussion button. There's a title, and there's your post. That's it. You are saying, putting a question, putting a statement, putting a video. There's images, links. There's all kinds of stuff you can put in here. Whatever you want to have the students discuss, you put it in. You can choose who it gets posted to, which sections. You can attach things. You can set how long it is available from and available to. The really nice thing, I like that it's not just when the post expires, but it actually is when the post becomes available, which allows you to say, you can respond to this starting on Thursday night. It's a great feature. Save and publish versus save. I want to mention that this is fairly true across Canvas. Most things you can save and publish, which means you put it out there right now, or you can save, which means the work you've done is saved, but you can go back later and publish. This is great for if you have a day that you're not teaching. Let's say you don't teach a class on Thursday, you go through, do your work, get your stuff all prepared on a Thursday. Now you have days in the future where you can just go through and publish stuff and put it out there for the students. On discussions, it is really easy to use discussions, both from a teacher and from a student perspective. You're just writing prompts and responses. It's also really easy as an instructor to overuse discussions. My caution to you is, as an instructor, use discussions in a way that you would like them to be used on you if you were a student. Don't be the instructor that says, every day I need you to make 2 discussion posts and 4 discussion responses and 8 responses to responses. You're not going to get quality from your students in doing that. You're just going to end up with students just trying to come up with something to post on there. If you wouldn't like to have to respond to that many things, don't make your students have to respond to that many. You will get more out of better prompts. You will not get more out of having more things for them to do. So use discussions. They're a great tool. Just use them in a way that you would like them to be used on you, if that makes sense. Okay. Last big one in Canvas is going to be Panopto. Now, if you've used Kaltura, if you've used Canvas in the past, you've probably seen Kaltura. Kaltura was our previous video storage and distribution service. Kaltura has been replaced by Panopto. Kaltura still can be found Like I think if I click on my media or somewhere in here, media gallery, somewhere there's a way to still find Kaltura here and there on Canvas, but it has been largely phased out by Panopto. If you're unfamiliar with Panopto, that's okay. It's also a really easy tool to use. What is it? Like I said, it's a video storage and distribution platform. How do we use it? Well, if I click on Panopto and then create, what it allows me to do is either record a video session or upload video. You can also create a playlist or determine what folder things go in, but we're just going to look at these first two, how to record and how to upload. Why would you want to not record here? Why would you want to just upload something? Well, if you're someone who has been recording videos of yourself for some time, or maybe even has Zoom sessions that you're going to record, if you already have a video recording system set up that you know how to use, you're comfortable with, you don't really need to learn a new piece of software, you're fine, you just need a place to put your videos, by all means, use what you are comfortable with. You're going to get the best content if you use what you're comfortable with. Once you've done that, right here, upload. I'm not going to walk through the upload process. It's as easy as click upload and select the file you want to upload. So if you're not super tied down to one video capture system, or maybe you don't have one at all, you never really record yourself, I suggest starting off with Panopto. It's a great way to record. I'm going to actually walk you through the full setup. So I'm going to click record, and instead of opening Panopto, I'm going to go ahead and do an install. I already have it installed, but there's something I want to show you in the installation, just because it will save OIT time later if I show you now. In the installer, if you really want to change where it installs, fine, go ahead. Do me a favor though, do you a favor, don't change the Panopto web server. Sometimes folks, when they're going through here, like to start clicking around on stuff and changing things. This is where we are paying to host our Panopto videos, so don't change that because otherwise it won't be stored. Next, install. It is a light and simple application. It's not hard to use. It's not hard to install. I'm getting an error message right now, as you can see. You won't normally get that. It's just saying, hey, we can't use your webcam because something else is using it. It's Zoom that's using it, so that's okay. And this is Panopto. That's how long it takes to install. Very easy to install and easy to use. Over here on the left, you've got your sources. Where are you picking up video from? Where are you picking up audio? What's the quality you're recording at? You can also have secondary sources. It has a really nice built-in PowerPoint capture so that you can really pull the PowerPoint. You know how you go in PowerPoint presenter mode? It basically works like that, where you use a secondary screen, and that screen is Panopto. So great PowerPoint integration. By default, it's going to put it in my folder, which is actually this folder here that I see in Canvas. The name, it names by date and time by default. I recommend giving it a much more meaningful name than that, but the good news is if you forget to give it a more meaningful name, you can usually remember, oh yeah, that was like Thursday at 4 o'clock that I recorded that. Well, let me go find it. So once those are all set up, you hit the record button. It can record both your screen and yourself on video without any sort of problem. I'm not going to do a recording right now because I'm already recording on Zoom and I don't want to cause problems. Once you are done recording, like I said, it will upload right into here. You will have all of your videos that are put in. Well, why Panopto? Why do I want to put my stuff on Panopto? Why should I not just put it up on Box? So there's a couple reasons. Biggest one is this little thing right here, that CC. It's closed captions. Panopto does automatic captioning. It's not perfect, but it's really good. And the good news is, while it's not perfect, you actually can go in and you can edit the captions to make sure that they are right. Now, just a word of caution, editing your captions on a 30-minute video is not that bad because you're not going to have to edit everything. You're really only going to have to edit the times where you're using jargon, complicated last names, specific terminology for your course. Those are the things that it might have trouble with. 30-minute video, not that bad. 90-minute video, not quite so fun. So watch yourself on your length of these videos. I mean, that should be true for anything, right? Anytime that you expect somebody to go back and watch a recording of you, you want to keep it manageable chunks, if at all possible. There's also built-in analytics, which, again, is one of those things that Box just doesn't offer you. You don't get to see, are people actually doing this? Are people actually watching this? What is my performance on this video? There's just a lot of really great tools that are built in to Panopto that I would never say that it is the wrong thing to use Box. Box is a fine place to put your videos if that is how you work with your students. If you use Box and your students are used to you using Box, that's okay. I'm not here to tell you not to use Box. But if you're looking for those extra features and closed captioning and better reporting and all that, Panopto really, you just can't go wrong with it. Also easy to share. You click the share button. You've got your link right here, or you can embed it and put it directly into your Canvas course. It really is a great way to record videos. And like I said, if you have a way to record videos already, great. If you don't have one, this is an all-in-one solution from recording to distribution. I see over in chat, is there any degradation in video quality when uploading to Panopto? So, like anything, there is some compression that takes place. I'm the ATSD at Guildhall, where I work with a bunch of sound and audio nerds that are super obsessed with nothing ever looking or sounding worse than it possibly could. When I demoed this for them, which is actually the video you're seeing right here, they had a similar course to this that I ran with them. They were all like, wow, the video quality on that's really good. I can't believe that it doesn't look worse than that. That's great. So I would say if they were surprised by how good the quality of audio and video is, then most folks would be pretty happy with it. So, some loss in quality, but it's pretty solid overall. I would put it up against just about any. What else do we have as far as questions on Panopto? Processing time. This 30-minute video, I tested it. It was 4.5 minutes to process. Now, Panopto videos, full disclosure, Panopto videos are processed on your machine. So that's going to depend on kind of what you've got on your side. I will say even using the lowest end that would also be considered modern, you're still looking at a 1-to-1 conversion time. Now, the closed captioning time is a little bit longer. Closed captioning, we're usually looking at a couple hours. It is done by machine, but it is still, they're uploaded in batches, and then there's a processing turnaround time. I've never seen it take more than about 6 hours for a video to get captions added to it. So it's always same day captioning. "15-minute video made in Camtasia and uploaded to Panopto. Turnaround time." So all things being equal, I would predict that video to be ready in 30 minutes. I would predict, if we're lucky, the captions will be ready at dinner time. They'll at least be ready before you go to bed. So that's kind of, yeah, the captions are never quite as fast as they seems like they could be. The captioning always kind of gets to the point where I go, is this going to be done? And then it is. So but realistically, if you think about the fact that, a student getting access to them later the same day, it's still pretty good to have captions on there. Now, this is a faculty by faculty member decision to make. Do you share a video with your students that you have not corrected the captions on? I don't know. I would get it to the students as quickly as possible and let them know, hey, I will try to have the captions corrected by this weekend. Yeah, but I would get it to them. The good news is Panopto's closed captioning service falls within, there are different levels of acceptability. This does not quite meet the broadcast TV standard for closed captioning, but it does meet standard accommodation level for DAS accommodations for language other than English or hearing assistance. So it does meet accommodation requirements. It's usually pretty close. On that note, when possible, when recording yourself, even if you really don't feel like having your picture in the corner, put your picture in the corner when you're recording yourself. Even people who are not deaf or hard of hearing, we also read lips. Now, we're not near as good as the people who have learned to actually read lips, but we still find ourselves reading lips in order to understand things better. And we find ourselves, being able to look at someone's face just to see the movement of their face and their mouth and their head, and we can make air quotes and all kinds of things that if you don't have yourself set up with a video, your students are missing out on things. I talk with my hands a lot, and I try to not whenever I'm online, but yeah, it's good to have your video in there. Your students will understand you better if they can see your video. While we're on the subject of your video and how your video looks and how things work, I am using the webcam that is built into my laptop. It is a 720p built-in webcam. I have nicer, fancier webcams. I am not using them because I'm trying to prove a point that you don't have to have a great webcam. What you have to have is good lighting. If you feel like the picture quality of your video is terrible, probably your lighting is terrible. It's probably not actually your webcam. Just get your lighting a little brighter. Don't have the light behind you. Have the light in front of you. You can see I have a window open in front of me, so it's casting a good bit of light on me. Just get some light on your face. It will really help people see you. Actually working in a somewhat dark room with a light in front of you will actually help a lot with video. Helps you look right, helps you have the right contrast. Behind me, I am not actually at that place. And I'm guessing, Stephen, you're probably not actually in the woods. Maybe you are, I don't know. But you can actually go in, and I'm going to open up. Now, you're not going to see the tool that I'm on right now because Zoom doesn't doesn't show this, but on the video, on the Zoom bar, I'm going to video settings. Now you'll see this. In Zoom settings, if you go down to the virtual background, you can actually go in, and before you set up a virtual background, there's a little tool you have to install, which is the virtual background tool. It will not force you to restart Zoom. You can actually do it while Zoom is still running, but go in, set up virtual background, and you can pick lots of different backgrounds. I'm a big fan of using a virtual background just because I don't have to worry about what it looks like behind me. I don't have to worry about one of the kids running behind me trying to punch their brother with a PlayStation controller. So long as it's back there, you probably won't see it. So just know that that is a great option. I will say this, keep it reasonable. Sometimes people try to push for the coolest background possible, and when you do that, you end up, distracting people. So it's a good option. It works pretty well. On the video settings, it actually works under virtual background or under video. But under video, you have the option to mirror my video. Now, why would I want to mirror my video or not? Remember, when it comes to things that are, if I can get the light up, this paper is invisible. There we go. When it comes to things that are written down, by default, they're going to look backwards if you write them on the board and then you show them to somebody, whereas you'll have to go in and just change the mirroring and you'll be good to go. It'll look a little weird to you because you'll feel like you're backwards, but it's okay. It's worth it. In here in the settings, there's not a lot of other things that I really think are that important to adjust. If you're finding yourself having trouble with how long it takes for videos to be shared or distributed or uploaded or any of that stuff, you can definitely go in and disable HD. You can switch to, you can switch your aspect ratio if for some reason you need to. It is actually okay to turn off HD for a lot of presentations, especially if it's just you video chatting with people. It doesn't necessarily have to be HD. This is such a small picture that's being displayed that it's probably okay anyways. Chat does exist. Chat is a really great way to be able to have sort of a side conversation. I highly recommend, if you have a large class and you have either someone co-teaching with you or you have a TA that can help manage the chat, it's a really great option. Just like we're doing in this session, I can sometimes jump over to the chat to see what's going on, but in order for me to be able to keep doing what I'm doing, I can't keep a constant eye on the chat. That's one of the things Faye is able to help us out with. Also, as you've probably noticed, Faye's done a good job of just throwing some links in there. It's a great way for if somebody goes back in later and goes, hey, what was that thing? We've got a record of it in there. Okay. We've talked about the basics of running an online course, expectations, set expectations for your students. You want to know the expectations for running your online course. Students want to know the expectations for being a part of an online course. Meet with your students regularly online. The expectation from the provost's office is that you meet with your students when you would normally have class. That's not going to be easy. It's going to take some work. There's going to be some growing pains, but that is what the university requests. We know about my.smu. Watch that video that OIT put out if you're having trouble figuring out how to pull your class roster to email your students. We talked about Canvas. Canvas has got really 3 awesome tools in discussions, which we will use sparingly, but we will use because not everything should be synchronous. We've got Panopto for recording and storing our videos, and we've got conferences for whenever we need to just have a class session and get everybody on the same page. Why conferences versus Panopto/Zoom? At the end of the day, the best thing conferences has going for it, in my opinion, is if you're a Canvas person, and you say, I love Canvas, I want to live inside Canvas, Canvas is where I want my class to exist, and I don't want to do a bunch of other stuff, then use conferences. That is the number one reason to use conferences, is if you want to live inside one ecosystem. If you're one of those people that buys an Apple router and an Apple TV and an Apple computer and an iPhone because you like to have a single ecosystem, then you're probably also the kind of person that likes to use conferences inside of Canvas, because you have one ecosystem and that's where you live and that's where you work. If you prefer something else, if you prefer having Zoom meetings with your students, by all means use Zoom. We don't have different options available for any other reason than we want you to have options. There is not one that you should use or shouldn't use. These are all things that have OIT's blessings, so use them. We talked about the tools that are inside of Canvas. We talked about Zoom from sort of a camera perspective, from sort of how to get your video going. Last thing we need to hit on is setting up some of the behind the scenes stuff in Zoom. smu.edu/Zoom, or this crazy link up here. Once you go into Zoom, the first thing you'll be greeted with is your meetings. And I've got a whole bunch of them in here. There's kind of a lot to take in here. The good news is, kind of like in Canvas, how I said there's only a few things we really need to focus big on. There's only a few things here that really, really super matter. First thing I would do, I would go up to Profile, get your profile set up, get a picture in, set yourself up a custom personal link so that it's not just numbers, it's actually your name or your course or something the students can remember if you choose to use it. Get your profile set up. You can even put a picture. Just set that up first. When it comes to meetings, in here you can see your upcoming meetings, your previous meetings. These are all the meetings I have coming up. I can also schedule a meeting either from up here at the top or in here in the meetings panel. When I go to schedule a meeting, give it a name, a description, set a time. If you meet with your students Tuesday at 10 o'clock every week and Thursday at 10 o'clock every week, set up a Tuesday every week to go at 10 o'clock and put it on recurring. You can do recurring meetings so that you don't have to worry about setting up a session every single time. I don't recommend requiring a password. Sometimes it's tempting to go in and say, well, I just want to make sure it's my students in there. Number one, I would feel pretty bad for the person who decided to jump onto a Zoom session for some course that, like, they need to get a hobby. Plus, they'd have to get that password from, they'd have to get that link from somebody. That'd be the least of my concern, just rogue people jumping into your online sessions. My biggest thing with passwords is using a password is yet another reason that students are going to say they couldn't make it to your session. I'm sorry, I got that password from you and I couldn't tell if it was an L or a 1. Oh, I got the password from, I wasn't working. Oh, I didn't get the password. Skip the password step. If some rogue decides to come to your class in your Zoom session and have a free discussion, just kick them out. Video settings, and actually I'm gonna skip these because I'm gonna show them to you in another session. Just know this first part, I would definitely make sure you have your time and your date and your name set up. I like to include the time and date actually in the meeting name. They call it topic, but in the meeting name, I like to include time and date in there as well. As you can see, like my online teaching essentials, Wednesday, 2:30. The reason I really like to put it in there is because Zoom does this goofy thing where they use the words today and tomorrow. I don't love the words today and tomorrow. I like Wednesday and Thursday a little bit better, just because that's how my mind works. If you like today and tomorrow, by all means, let them manage your time. That's meetings. That's how you set up a meeting. It's how you find the meetings are already scheduled. Webinars, we don't have webinars enabled here. Webinars are for if you're trying to have huge meetings of people. And I know what you may be thinking, well, I have a session where I have 115 students. The meetings are good for up to 300. When I say webinars are for huge groups, I mean these are for like 500, 1,000, 2,000 people. This is not what we're trying to do. We don't do webinars. We don't have that service enabled. You can go in and view your recordings. They're in here. Earlier today, the official word on the street was, we were telling folks, hey, you can use the cloud recording. There was some miscommunication as to how much cloud storage we have. And while you can certainly use cloud recordings temporarily, if you would like, we do have limited space. And the fear is that at our current burn down rate, we're probably 2 weeks away from filling it up. So, and we have like as much space as Zoom offers anybody. So instead of recommending cloud recordings, I'm going to recommend local recordings. So set up to record locally and then put it up on Panopto. So do your recordings that way. Now there's a chance that you're never gonna share your Zoom calls. Maybe you record videos of yourself giving lectures and you share those, but then your online sessions you record, and your just meetings, you record those, but you don't share them publicly, you just share them as needed. Hard to say, but just record them locally. They'll be available sooner, and we won't run out of space in our Zoom storage. Big thing that I want to hit on is settings. Now, these are some of the same settings that were in that other meeting scheduling, but these are the long-term settings. These are the ones that you set it. It's like the Ron Popeil oven, set it and forget it, right? So you set these, and then every time you go back to use Zoom, these settings will be set the same. Biggest, maybe the most important thing to me in all of this is, do you want to start meetings with the host video on? That is a no from me every time. I want to be in charge of whenever my video starts. I do not want to click the start meeting button and be caught off guard with the video starting. You will never be happy that you overshared, so just start with the video off. Participant videos, also great to start with participant videos off, just because I feel like, out of respect to the students that are participating, let them choose when to turn their video on. Don't force them to start with their video on. There are no rules for where you have to be to participate in a Zoom meeting. No one says that you can't do a Zoom meeting in a crowd of people. No one says you can't do a Zoom meeting all alone. No one says you can't do a Zoom meeting inside a cardboard box. If there's a student who wants to do a Zoom meeting wherever they want to do it and they don't want to share their video, don't force them to share their video. That's okay. Now, could there possibly be a time that for certain assignments, video is required? Yeah, if I'm a performing arts instructor and I'm talking to, theater arts students, I expect every single person in the course to have their video up because I need to see you. But, if we're giving a lecture on, positrons and quarks and stuff, we probably don't need to have everybody's video up. Audio type, leave telephone and computer audio on. You can switch to only allowing telephone. I don't know why you would ever do that. You could switch to allowing only computer audio. The reason you would switch to only computer audio instead of allowing telephone is because telephone often doesn't sound nearly as good. But let's try to meet the students where they are. If a student can only access via telephone audio, let's still let them be a part of the conversation, and let's let them hear you. Join before host. Let your students join before the host has gotten there. Nothing will push students away, or really anyone away, from an online meeting faster than thinking the other person isn't digitally there. If you were to sign on to this session at even 2 minutes before it started and it said, I'm sorry, this session doesn't exist, there's a very high likelihood that you would go, oh, well, forget it. I guess it's not happening. Or even, especially if you signed on 2 minutes after it was supposed to start, if I was running late and you tried to get on and it was supposed to start 2 minutes ago and it said this session doesn't exist, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to go back and check your link and check your email and call a friend and text a classmate and see what's going on. Are we meeting today? And before you know it, 8 minutes have passed and you realize, oh, it started 30 seconds after I checked. Just let your students get in there before you. It's okay. Nothing bad will come of it. They can't do anything. Just let them join before you get there. It's all right.
Plus, that will give them time to make sure their audio is working.
Yes. You want to let students have time for audio, and if using video checks. Very important. Thanks, Faye. The other ones here are just defaults. I'm only going to focus on the ones that I have specifically changed and mention why. Mute participants upon entry. Participants are not muted on entry by default, which I think is strange, but I would definitely mute everybody. If you're in a session with like 5 people, you may not need to mute everybody, but especially if you're in a session with more than 5 people, you don't want to normally have everyone having audio on for 2 reasons. One, it's hard to know whose turn it is to talk, and students are especially not always good at knowing that. But more than that, audio feedback becomes a serious issue. Whenever people don't have their sound set up right and their audio is feeding back through their microphone and you get that whirring, buzzing, screeching sound, just start with them muted. I have a meeting reminder turned on so that 5 minutes before the Zoom desktop application reminds me, hey, you have a meeting coming up. Chats, I have it set to auto save chats. I also highly recommend that. Tell it to save the chats for you so that you don't have to remember to save the chat. That way, you not only have a recording of the video, but you also have the chat automatically being recorded. You can turn off co-host option. This does not make anyone your automatic co-host. It just makes sure that the co-host option is always there. I don't know why you wouldn't want to have that turned on by default. And the only last one I have has to do with HTML formatting for the Outlook plugin. That one really doesn't matter. I just like to add in, there is an Outlook plugin for Zoom, and it's really nice. It helps you schedule your Outlook. It helps you schedule your Zoom meetings in Outlook really easily. Recording settings, telephone settings, I wouldn't mess with any of those, especially telephone. That's the basics of Zoom. Set up your profile, create your meetings, check your settings, set them once, and you should be good to go for an extended time. Okay. Basics of online courses, my.smu, SMU email, Zoom, Canvas, which had our discussions, Panopto, and conferences. If you're looking for more in-depth information on Zoom, on Canvas, or on a number of other online services that SMU offers, the same way that you got to this session, look on that same page. There's lots of other in-depth sessions that are definitely worth checking out. I highly recommend any of our Canvas trainings. We've got some of the best Canvas folks at any university. I would highly recommend checking out any of their trainings if you'd like to know more. Other than that, I'm happy to take any questions as we wrap up, but I appreciate you all coming.